begins. An iconic reggae moment you can't miss.
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
The local government ministry is in the microscope in the wake of comments from the councilor for the Maxfield Park Division in the CVM, Dennis Gordon, that 2% of the overall budget for the country should be directed towards matters concerning local government. He says it will take about just about $28 billion to do what is needed on the ground at the local government level, and he's making that call public as we head into an election season, and more important than that, we head into the new budget cycle in March next year. I look at that point in Lead Story this evening on CVM TV. Welcome to Lead Story on this Friday on CVM TV. My name is George Davis. I want to thank Raquel Porter for the T-shirt. Good to support fellow journalists when they are engaged in entrepreneurship. The issue of local government funding has again come to the fore, with the councillor for the Maxfield Park Division, Dennis Gordon, one of the most senior councillors in the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, calling for a change to the funding model. At the headline for that change is what he says should be a straightforward decision. Apportion just 2%, he says, just 2% of the overall national budget towards local government. The overall budget for the last fiscal year, if you use that number, was about $1.3 trillion. He says, if you take 2% of that 1.3 trillion, you should come out at about $26 billion. And he says that 26 billion, 26 to 28, well, he said 28 precisely, but 1.3 trillion, 2% of that is 26 billion. But 26, 28, not much difference. He says that's what it will take to take care of the many, many needs at the local government level, not just roads, not just bridges, not just community beautification, but other infrastructure works that are needed in communities. He says it will take that quantum of funding to adequately do the job. Now, many people will say, well, is he onto something? What of the current funding model? What are the gaps in the current funding model? And how is apportioning 2% of the overall national budget going to ensure in better spend of the available resources to elicit best results? And that's the concern that many people have. It's not about the funds that are available. They'll hurriedly say that the way the monies have been spent over time is the real problem, not necessarily the amounts apportioned to local government. So the fact of the matter is this. How is local government funded? Local government is funded largely through the collection of fees, motor vehicle license fees, market fees, property taxes. All these roll in together to provide the funding for local government. But Mr. Gordon is saying, well, for what we collect, it is inadequate. We need greater support from the government. Before I go into further looking at the funding models, the funding model that exists and what has been apportioned for local government in the current budget cycle that we're in, we're going to take the break first, and then I'm going to go back to the past a little bit to draw a contrast between how local government was funded back in the day, the efficiency of services back then, I just mentioned that, and then I'll contrast that with the amount of money that government gives to local government in this day, in this present time. And we look at the results for ourselves and see if our leaders are being better at spending money more efficiently, or if they continue to waste money in the wind. More on Lead Story, local government, after these.
nothing down on a shiny, brand new Hyundai vehicle with free loan payments until March 2025. Yes, get a 2024 Hyundai vehicle and get free loan payments until March 2025. 100% financing, 2 years free service, 0 processing fees, and other sweet goodies. Drive into the new year with your new ride. Goodbye, old car. Hello, Hyundai. Hyundai. 4 free payments promotion. Limited stock available. Offer while stocks last. Conditions apply.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Marcia Griffiths culminates her diamond anniversary in reggae music, 60 years and counting. Sunday, November 3 at Hope Gardens with Marcia Griffiths and friends. A massive musical showcase featuring Jamaica's greatest artists all on one stage, courtesy of Appleton Estate, KFC, Water, Coca-Cola, HIC, Candle, and Ranch Entertainment. Tickets available at marciagriffiths.com and caribtix.com. Marcia Griffiths and friends, an iconic reggae moment you can't miss.
Lead Story. Welcome back to Lead Story here on CVM TV on this Friday. Missing my cues there. The director will not be too angry with me. He knows I don't normally do that. Here's the thing. We were lined up to speak with 2 guests. We're having some trouble getting them. But this is an issue that is so important that we're cracking on and trying to provide some perspective. Now, local government, as I noted, is funded mainly through the collection of property taxes, the payment of motor vehicle licensing fees, and market fees, among other things. But those are the main components in the funding for local government. Dennis Gordon, the councillor for the Maxfield Park Division, one of the most senior councillors in the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, he sits on the PNP side. He says that, look, what is given to local government by virtue of the process that funds local government is woefully inadequate. He's saying that rather than depend on the collections from the areas I've told you about, what we should instead do is just to siphon off 2% of the overall national budget, which he says $1.3 trillion budget amounts to about 28 billion by his calculation, 26 if you do the math, but we're not going to haggle over 2 billion there. He says that what we should do is to use that instead to spread across the local government divisions equally. All municipalities across the country get an equal share to do the job. Now, the first thing is this: as we look at the national budget for local government expenditure, 2.26 billion in capital expenditure, 25.4 to take care of salaries and all other recurrent expenses for the 2024-25 budget cycle. And, well, if you look at those numbers, clearly the bulk of the budget has to go with recurrent expenditure. So I don't know if with more funds available, if local government officials would employ more people and set them about the tasks that need attention and, of course, increase the recurrent expenses. But we're not getting into yet, and that's why we wanted him here to talk about how he would share up, how he would divvy up the spending in the individual municipal corporations. But what is true is that initially what he said last evening in a town hall meeting, at the Merle Grove High School in Kingston, what he said was that each of the municipalities would be given equal amounts to spend. Now, there's a problem with that because there are obviously varying degrees of need across the various divisions right across the island. There are 220 plus divisions in the country, and there are different needs across all of them. Some have a similar profile, but some are markedly in better condition than the others. It wouldn't be wise to give money to a division that is in better condition than one where infrastructure is decades behind another one and of the same size, same profile. That wouldn't make sense. You would have to weight the distribution and then you'd have additional problems. But again, these are some of the questions that Mr. Gordon would have been required to answer if he had made himself available this evening. Notwithstanding that, the fact of the matter is there was a time when local government was funded largely by the funds generated by the activities within the municipalities. I draw attention to a document here showing the commercial revenue performance. Well, not even that yet. I go to a ministry paper, 1993, under a PNP administration, ministry paper number 893, and 93 representing the year, 8 representing the number for the year, the reform of local government. And I found this document instructive from February of 1993 because it said, quote, the ministry paper seeks to inform the Honorable House of policies being pursued by the government in respect to its commitment to create a strong, viable and effective system of local government. It went on to say that the need for fundamental reform of local government in Jamaica has been on the national agenda for the last 50 years. This was a ministry paper, 1993, saying that the reform of local government had been on the agenda for 50 years prior to 1993. Many people argue that to this day, the reform has not yet happened. It said, the ministry paper, that during that period, 7 major studies, in Jamaica we love to do studies. Well, 7 major studies up to 1993 had been done on the subject of reforming local governance with a focus on reforming the financing of local government. The ministry paper says that reports on those studies have been remarkably unanimous in finding that the major contributors to the deficiencies and poor performance of local government has been what? No prizes for guessing, inadequate funding. The recommendations in those 7 reports up to 1993 have been, the ministry paper says, consistent in emphasizing the need to provide local authorities with adequate and independent sources of revenue and to grant them greater autonomy in the management of local affairs. Now, here's where it gets nice now. They say in this document that in the 1960s, local government derived 75% of its revenues from local rates and property taxes. I repeat, in the 1960s, local government authorities across the country, 75% of all revenue collected by local government authorities in the 1960s came from local rates and property taxes. And all councils across the country operated a budget surplus in the 1960s. In the 1990s, the paper says today, meaning in 1993, February 1993. Remember, you're coming from the 1960s, where 75% of revenue is through property taxes and local rates. By the 1990s, 90% of the revenue required to fund local government services came from central government. So, in a period of 30 years, it's a generation, yeah? In 30 years, the picture had changed, where in the 1960s, local government was pretty much self-sustaining. The activities in the local government space, in the particular division, in the municipal corporation, the parish council, as they were called then. In the 1960s, they were largely able to fund themselves with 75% of what was needed being earned by them, being collected by them. But by the 1990s, 90% of what they needed now came from the government. And so this change, this about change in how local government funding was being done, it was now a case where they were largely dependent on government activities and not collecting as much. After the break, I want to give you an idea of what local authorities were collecting in terms of revenue back then. Look at what the potential is for collection now and ask the question, are local government authorities doing enough to collect the monies from the activities within their locale, within their division, within their municipalities? Are they doing enough to collect all that exists there? And must they do that before they hanker after a greater share of the national spoils? More on Lead Story after these on CVM TV.
Pay nothing down on a shiny, brand new Hyundai vehicle with free loan payments until March 2025. Yes, get a 2024 Hyundai vehicle and get free loan payments until March 2025. 100% financing, 2 years free service, 0 processing fees, and other sweet goodies. Drive into the new year with your new ride. Goodbye, old car. Hello, Hyundai. Hyundai. 4 free payments promotion. Limited stock available. Offer while stocks last. Conditions apply.
When the food sweet, dance. When the vibe nice.
The time by Grace. Taste that moves you is
6:45.
It's Maxi Kingston and Montego Bay's sweet October sale. Get ready to shop and save up to 50% off store-wide on clothing, shoes, home, and accessories. Shop with us this October 24th to November 2nd at Fairview Montego Bay and in Kingston, Springs Plaza, and our newest location on Red Hills Road. October doesn't get any sweeter. See you there.
Welcome back to Lead Story here on CVM TV on this Friday. I'm talking local government, and I have a guest that is being connected as I speak. I'll speak to that guest in short order. But here's the thing. There is a question to ask. Are local authorities and the leadership in local authorities doing enough to collect the monies from activities within their locale, within their divisions, within their municipal corporations? Are they doing enough to collect those monies to then begin to fund adequately the services that need taking care of in these divisions? And must that not be done before you go to ask government for a significant slice? 2% of the overall budget doesn't seem like a lot, but there are several ministries, there are many departments and agencies under these ministries. And so if you give one ministry 2% of the budget, and you give another one will say, well, my ministry is more important than local government, you need to give me X. You're going to be in a significant problem where the numbers adding up is concerned. And so human beings, people managing resources, people managing processes, people managing systems, they always want more resources. But you have to ask the question, are you doing well spending what you have? And even more importantly, and more poignantly for local government authorities and the actors leading them, are you doing enough collecting what is out there so you can then begin to help yourself? Kijana Johnson, he is the councilor for the Racecourse Division in the Clarendon Municipal Corporation, a member of the People's National Party, joins me this evening. Good evening, councillor.
Good evening, and good evening to your listeners and viewers.
Thank you very much. Your colleague in the KSAMC, Dennis Gordon, says, look, the way local government is funded now is wholly inadequate. There is just not enough funds available to do what is needed, given the tremendous demand on them for services to be adequately taken care of by a very demanding public. He says one way to solve the problem, or the best way to solve the problem, is to just take off 2% of the overall budget of 1.3 trillion. Get that 28 billion, put it into the pockets of local government authorities, and they can then begin to do the work that's necessary. Do you believe that this is the best way to go about it?
Well, I'll go back to what you were speaking about earlier regarding property tax, because I think the more important question is the potential amount of resources that you can get from property tax. Is it enough? Is it adequate to fully fund local government? And so far, because as you know, I'm a first-time councillor, so far, I don't believe it is fully adequate. And in order to fully fund local government, I believe that there are some reallocation that has to be done, which means that there are ways in which the government can seek to reallocate resources as relates to what comes from central government. Local government, as it stands, is fully underfunded. And I believe that what the government has done over the years has shown a blatant, underappreciating councillors and underfunding the projects and the state of local government. So I do believe that funds should arrive from central government to fund local government.
But Councillor, if you look at it that way, Councillor, I don't know if you caught me earlier saying that a ministry paper published in 1993, February 1993, by the then PNP administration, which would have been led by P.J. Patterson, noted that in the 1960s, 75% of what local government authorities needed to spend was earned by them in terms of the local rates that they set and collected on and the various taxes that they were empowered to collect. And that by the 1990s, it was now central government who was providing the bulk of funding at a tune of 90%. The local government authorities were no longer self-sufficient. There is the question then about the efficiency of local authorities in collecting what they're owed. Don't you believe that there should be a starting point that local government authorities have to get better at collecting the monies that are out there? Councillor?
There are some issues as relates, and I can speak from my experience. We've had some issues where that is concerned. But when you look at the potential as relates to collecting all funds from property tax, is it enough? I still believe it is not enough. We can take, for example, the natural disaster that just took place.
Yes.
Councillors weren't, well, you would have seen that the Prime Minister announced that Member of Parliament would receive a sum of money. You have to look at the increase in demand on councillors. Persons are asking and persons are expecting that the councillors in their respective communities or in their respective divisions will be able to assist them. There weren't any funds that arrived from central government.
Yes.
We couldn't use any funds that were available from local government because, you know, either the minister didn't send out funds to assist as it relates to building applications.
But Councillor, with respect, those funds for that kind of assistance in a disaster, you would appreciate, would not be funds that you could budget for at the start of a budget cycle because you don't know what the size of the disaster is going to be and what the demand on councillors will be. So that would have to come from an emergency fund. But set that aside. I'm happy you've drawn attention to the issue of property taxes because that's not the only revenue stream for municipal corporations. I take you back to 2013 to 2014, again, under a PNP administration again, and it's not a deliberate of mine, it's what the research gave me because there was no publication from any other administration. So kudos to the PNP administration for publishing those numbers. Here's what the numbers show. In 2013-14, the KSA-MC, for example, collected $392 million from services that it is empowered to collect from. 392 million. Of that 392 million, that was of course more than what they collected in 2012-2013, the year before. And market fees and leases was the largest contributor to that overall collection. In your parish, Clarendon, you collected 57.2 million in 2013-2014. Of that, building and subdivision fees generated most of the revenues, and that was an increase of 2,738,000 when compared to the previous year. So you collected more than 2012-13. It shows that in building and sub-licensing fees, it shows that in market fees and leases, motor vehicle licenses, all those things taken together, Councillor, add up. And perhaps the corporations are focused, perhaps fixated, on pursuing the property taxes, which of course are substantial and are woefully underperforming in terms of collection. But you are missing out on other significant areas that you could collect in and beef up the size of your kitty to deal with the problems that your constituents have in the respective divisions.
Well, I did point it out earlier that I do believe that there are some issues as it relates to collecting. I think the capacity of the municipal corporations as it relates to how they run, I still do believe that it is woefully underfunded. If it is that we collect the maximum amount of resources that we can from all those different revenue streams, we would still fall short.
But Councillor, not denying that you would fall short, But how much further short would you fall? You don't know because you're not maximizing your collections. And I have a difficulty personally because, look, I believe that local government needs to be pulled down and built up from the base because I think the whole model needs to be changed. But I'm saying, if you're woefully underperforming in your collections, you will never quite know what your true revenue potential is. You will never quite be sure of what your spending capacity is if you're not collecting. So how can you make the jump from there to say that, you know what, give me 2% of the national budget and I'll take care of my needs?
Well, I think that the municipal corporation, I can speak from Clarendon because I can't speak from the context of every single municipal corporations in the country. But I believe that Clarendon has been doing well as it relates to collections. Can we do more? Is it possible that they can do better as it relates to collecting, as it relates to collection? Of course, I do believe so. But I think the issue comes back to how important do you regard local government? If it is that you regard it in a sense that do you believe that funds should arrive from central government to support the resources that municipal corporations actually get from the collection of property taxes and so on. So I think that we have to look at it from that perspective as it relates to funding our project. Because currently, and I speak from my purview.
Personal experience.
As a councillor in Clarendon.
Councillor, I have
currently,
we
don't have access to funeral grants. We don't have access to building applications.
Councillor, I'm sorry, we have to leave it there. Councillor, I'm sorry, Councillor, we're out of time. I have to leave it there, unfortunately. We caught you late, but hopefully we can catch you up from the start another time and we can continue this discussion. I just like to say that, look,
thanks much,
I feel for the authorities at the local level. The demands being placed on them, huge demands, and I can see why Dennis Gordon would say, look, give me 2% of the budget and I'll be good. But to me, that's not enterprising thinking, and Dennis is a man I have a lot of respect for, but I don't see enterprising thinking. It's the easy way. I want to hear councillors right across the 228 divisions in this country telling the country that, look, we have devised this method of boosting collections. We have done this to reduce waste in the divisions across corporations, and we are on a path to being able to do more than we could. Notwithstanding these efforts, we believe that we'll be further along to meeting the expectations of our constituents if central government does this. But you just tell me that, look, you know what, forget about my inefficiencies in collection, forget about my inefficiencies in operation. You give me more money from the national kitty and I'll be able to do the job. I'm sorry, it's not cutting it for me. It's a no for me, just on the basis of that idea alone. That does not demonstrate the kind of enterprising thinking and approach to problem solving that I think our leaders should provide us, given the resources that we spend to allow them to do the job on behalf of the people. And I want to see more enterprising thinking and more enterprise in thinking. That's the story on this Friday. I make way now for the news at 7 with Curlin Brown.
No more fear of missing out. CVM TV News is on YouTube. Get up-to-date news, sports, and business content at CVM TV News anytime, anywhere. Subscribe now to CVM TV News to see it happen. Our days get a little complex sometimes. Often so many things make sense, yet so many do not. We are being intentional about giving prominence to the big stories in order to clarify and enlighten. Lead Story